Hi, guys. Welcome back. Today we're going to visit with 24 Carat. The name of her story is Dating While Fat. It's a little juicy. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, it's day 32, and I want to talk about dating while fat. Buckle up, diet buddy, because I have a lot to say about this one. I feel like one of the biggest challenges that fat people face when they're dating is pity. Being the target of pity. I really dislike people who pity me. And I do feel like when you're entering a relationship, especially a relationship with somebody of a normal weight, sometimes you can feel a vibe of pity coming from your potential partner. You just get a sense that that person feels like they're doing you a favor. Because of that, a lot of times your partner will expect you to put up with less effort in the relationship. The idea is that a person doesn't have to work as hard to keep a fat partner, because what's the fat partner going to do? Break up with him? If they break up with them, maybe they'll never find somebody else. And I also feel like a lot of times with fat people, there is the expectation that your partner is going to try to better you. Being fat is something that needs to be fixed. And that a person entering a relationship with you is going to try to fix that. And if they can't do it, then they're going to go find somebody else. When one person in a relationship is fat and the other person isn't, a lot of times that fatness cannot even be discussed between the two partners. It becomes a taboo subject. And anytime the normal weight partner wants to approach it, they feel like they're walking on eggshells. So it can really be uncomfortable for both sides of the relationship.
Okay, so let's examine how Cara is setting the stage for us. A guy and girl are in a relationship. One of them is significantly fatter than the other one, or more fat, excuse me. God, fatter sounds horrible, right? Weighs significantly more than the other person. Does that automatically put the person that's overweight behind the eight ball? Have you ever been in this situation? What are your thoughts? Let us know below.
I do get the feeling when I date that there are people on the outside looking in at the relationship, looking at my partner and being like, wow, what a great person. What a great person that normal sized person is to give this huge manatee a chance. Worst of all are the people who actually target overweight people because they believe that they're vulnerable and therefore easier to manipulate, easier to control within a relationship. A lot of times you'll have very overbearing people who only want you because they feel like you have to give them thanks. You have to really appreciate them because they're the only person in the world who would dare touch your disgusting manatee body. I see a lot of euphemism on dating websites. Words like curvy, big beautiful woman, goddess body. Do you know what I mean? I tend to steer clear of people who either fetishize fatness or are way, way too scared to talk about it.
So, in my search for videos, a lot of people that are overweight think that guys want to date them, specifically the women. Those are the videos I've been seeing. They think that the reason guys want to date them is because of some fetish, right? I think what they're not giving themselves credit for in some of the cases, not all, right, is the fact that sometimes people, when they're not so beautiful, sometimes they have to have a good personality. Sometimes they're actually fun to talk to. And sometimes guys actually do want to date and have relationships with people that they can talk to. And sometimes beautiful girls and even good looking guys, sometimes they rely so much on their looks that their personality and communication skills are lacking. Tell me if you agree or if you think I'm crazy.
I have been off the market for a very long time simply because I'm not comfortable with myself. But as I start putting myself out there more, it's made me think about how my past relationships have ended and how it really had a lot to do with my size. My last serious relationship was at the end of high school and beginning of college. My junior, senior year of high school, toward the end of it, I was probably only 20 pounds overweight. Not huge by any stretch, not but also it was noticeable that I was overweight. And in those days, I dated a boy. Let's call him James. Let's call him James. Names changed to protect the innocent. He was immature, just like me. I have a lot of really good memories with him, so let's not, if we do, talk about this, let's not judge him too harshly. So James and I started dating when I wasn't all that heavy. I was heavy, but I wasn't huge. And James was a normal weight kid, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But at the end of high school, the summer after I graduated high school, that's when my dad got sick. It was really traumatizing. So as I ended high school and entered college, I didn't gain the freshman 15. I gained the freshman 50 or 60. I got huge that first year of college.
I always thought it was weird that as you became an adult in your early 20s, sometimes you would run into girls from high school or from jobs that you had while you were in high school. And what was interesting is sometimes they would have children, sometimes they wouldn't, but sometimes they would drastically change from what they looked like in school. And I did see a couple girls where they went from being, 115, 120, and all of a sudden they were maybe 160, 170, 180. And it is a little jarring when you're not used to that.
So one day around spring break of my freshman year of college, I was at James's house. We were in his den watching anime like we usually did. And I remember he turned to me and it was like such a deliberate turn. It was like he turned to look at me and he said, I'm thinking about starting some body weight exercises. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, okay, that's cool. James was a normal weight person, but James was skinny. He was like a skinny nerd, the kind who gets skinny just because he's sitting at his computer and just forgets to eat. He was one of those. If you get you know the type. He had never been interested in fitness before. He had never mentioned fitness at all. So it was very odd that he would be bringing it up at that point. But I was like, okay, that's cool. You do you. That sounds fun for you. I'm glad you found a new hobby. But then he continued, wouldn't it be nice if you worked out with me? Aww. And I kind of thought about it and I was like, yeah, that might be fun. We could do something like that. What do you mean? Go to the gym together, something like that? You want to be that kind of couple? And he said, well, I was thinking I could make a workout plan for you. Huh.
Oh, no, he didn't.
It was confusing at the time. And I wasn't really mad about the fact that he wanted me to work out at the time. I was mad that he wanted to make a plan for me. I was like, no, I want to make the plan. If we're going to be doing this, can't you make your own plan and I'll make my plan and it'll be great. But looking back now with my adult knowledge, I realize what he was trying to do. If you go on the internet, if you frequent men's boards, if you look on Ask Reddit or certain men's discussion boards, this question will come up from time to time. And the question is, my girlfriend has gotten very fat and I'm no longer attracted to her. How can I get her back to a better weight that I'm more attracted to? And the advice is usually pretty similar. Start cooking her meals for her. She'll love it if you cook for her. You can start cooking healthy and she'll drop some weight. Or B, offer to work out with her.
It's interesting. Let's say she's right, and let's say you impose this story that the nerd started typing up to his Reddit buddies, right? And let's say they came up with this idea for him to go ahead and try to work out with her and stuff. That's actually kind of romantical, isn't it? I mean, seriously, he's literally taking the time out of his day to ask other people's advice because apparently he wants to make it work. But that's only if you can superimpose the story on this kid. And I just don't know if that's I don't know if that's his thought. What if he wants to be a physical trainer someday, or a kinesiologist or something special? Who knows?
If you offer to do it with her, she'll love that you're doing activities with her and she won't even notice that she's losing weight. So, this was what James was trying to do. It's perfectly fine to not be attracted to a fat person because they're fat. You can't tell somebody what they should and shouldn't like. So, wouldn't it have been better if James would have just come to me and said, listen, you have gotten really heavy. I just want you to know that if this continues, I don't think the relationship can continue. But he didn't. He chose instead to dance around the issue. And instead of just coming to me with the concern in the relationship like a normal human being, now granted, I will say that I'm a little bit unusual in that sense, that I would rather speak very bluntly about being overweight and being fat. I know that a lot of women are very uncomfortable being approached about their weight, but I've never been that way. And James knew that I've never been that way. I've always been very blunt about my size. So the fact that he felt like he had to dance around it, it really put a damper on the relationship. Not just because of my hugeness, but because I felt almost like he was lying by omission. So fast forward to the end of that relationship, all right? James and I went to a party at a mutual friend's house. We're going to call this friend Zeke. Zeke. Zeke's a good name for this guy. He strikes me more as a Zeke than his own name. Zeke was kind of a hippie type. He was really into the Beatles and, not shampooing his hair, that sort of person. A really cool dude. And he had a lot of really cool hippie friends. One of these friends, let's call her Janet. Janet was, picture like the golden hippie girl.
I don't know if this is real or if this is a bullshit story. Kara's just telling us out of the blue, right? But my God, she is a great storyteller. YouTube, you cheated 24 Karat. She should have gotten some more views. I think the problem is her titles. She had 365 videos, one every day. So obviously she did her obligation as a content creator. But her title always started with the same word, day.
All right, she was petite, she was vegan, she was skinny, she had this reddish blonde hair, and she was beautiful. She was like a little pixie girl. Remember, I was going through a really tough time at this point, and Janet always seemed to be there like, hey, do you need help? Do you need help cleaning your dorm? Do you need a ride this week? How's your dad? She was just genuinely an actually fun, good person. So Janet was at this party, and James, Zeke, and I, we were all there. So toward the end of that party, James pulled me aside and he said, listen, I'm attracted to Janet. I want your permission to go over there and ask her out. And if she says yes, I want to start dating her. But if she says no, you and I can continue on the way that we always have.
Oh my God, what a Chad, huh? Oh my God, that's awful. I'm so sorry. Holy moly, Kara. Gosh, that is awful. If you've ever experienced anything half that embarrassing, let me know down in the comments. That is just awful. Listen, I can't help what's going to happen to you in your relationships going forward, and I can't help what's already happened to you in your relationships that you've already gone through, right? But what I can let you know is that there's some stuff that we got to get out of your head from that. And the best way to do that is for you to go get your shoes. Let's go for a walk.
Well, there you are. Good morning, Venters. Hey, why don't you take a walk with me? Let's go. I hope you guys are having a nice Sunday. It is Saturday for me. I was up a little bit late last night, so I woke up about 20 or 30 minutes later than I would have liked. So instead of 7, it's closer to 7:30. But there's a little bit of a breeze, at least for right now, so that feels nice. Sometimes you got to take the little victories in life. We're going to take a quick little half-hour jaunt around the neighborhood, and then I'm probably going to go have breakfast with family. I always enjoy when I can go and have a meal with somebody that I care about. If you guys feel the same, let me know down in the comments. If you guys have any special plans for today, let us know down in the comments. I heard a really heartwarming story that I wanted to share with you because, let's be honest, it's a good way for us to start our day with something positive and uplifting. I'm a firm believer that if you can have a good start to your day, a lot of times that spills over into the rest of your afternoon and evening. So that's always nice. Let's start off with a good positive story. In North Carolina, Monroe County Sheriff Office got a call that there was a child wandering along a road on July 7th. So the canine unit went out to see what was going on. There was a nonverbal autistic child walking, and Deputy Belk, they didn't give his first name, but Deputy Belk and his canine associate, the dog named Remy the Bloodhound, tracked the boy's scent backwards back to his home. And now that little reverse tracking, which I guess had never really been done, at least not with this particular sheriff's office, that backward tracking found the autistic nonverbal child's home, and they found out that his garage door was ajar. And so they figured there was no foul play or trickery done on the parents' fault. It was just a simple case where the child had gotten out of the garage. And because he's nonverbal, it wasn't like he yelled back to his folks, "Hey, I'm taking off for a while," right? So this was a situation where Remy the Bloodhound, which is only 1 year old, by the way, so apparently it doesn't take long for these dogs to be able to really take advantage of their ability to track, right? But they were able to wipe the child's skin down, share it with the dog, and the dog was able to literally track back 1.5 miles or however long the distance was to the child's home. So that is becoming a new part of the training for the canine officers, because we live in a world where there's a lot more children being born with autism nowadays. You know, one of the things I do as a recruiter is I try to find special education teachers for SPED positions all around the country. And it's a very rewarding job when you're able to find a good SPED teacher, because these SPED teachers are predominantly working with kids with behavioral issues, learning disabilities, and in the case of autism spectrum, you're dealing with children that in many cases are nonverbal. What's really interesting, and I've talked about this with you guys before, is every now and then I'll run across a YouTube video and I'll listen to the person, and to me they sound completely normal or relatively normal, right? And then you'll find out that they're an adult living with autism. And it's really interesting because I look at speaking from like a public speaking viewpoint, where even if you're absolutely awkward and weird at speaking, practice makes perfect. You get better and better. And when I watch these little channels where the person has autism, but maybe they're an adult, they really do seem, in my opinion, like you would have a hard time telling some of them had autism or anything unique about them, you know? But I've been told that that's one of the things that, you know, as adults get older, they're able to work on that social awkwardness, right? But a lot of them don't necessarily get to the level of the successful ones doing YouTube channels, right? But the point is, we used to live in a world where, for whatever reason, autism was rare. For some reason, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, the rates of autism have skyrocketed through the roof. And I saw a video a couple of months back that some people believe that that might be due to consumption of diet sodas and Diet Coke. during the 3 stages of birth, right? Your first trimester, your second trimester, your third trimester. A lot of times women will be drinking Diet Coke, and they believe there might be a connection there because of the aspartame or some sort of ingredient in the Diet Coke. Do I know if that's true? Do I know if that's accurate? No, not at all. But if you guys have heard of that, let me know down in the comments. If you haven't and you think it's unbelievable and I'm wrong, because I could be, I'm going on a memory, maybe you can Google or you can YouTube the correlation between Diet Coke consumption during pregnancy and autism rates, because it's gone through the roof. And wouldn't that be horrible to find out that there was some sort of link there? Because if that is the case, golly, that might be another good reason to get off the sweet syrupy drinks, right? If we can get off those sugars and stuff, it's going to have a profound positive effect on us, and it might even have an effect on our kids that aren't even born yet. So again, if you are contemplating the idea of getting away from sugars, getting away from sodas, walking daily and drinking water, now might just be the best time ever. And if you're at that age in your 20s where you know deep down in your heart you want to have children, you know, it might be good to get your weight down to a level where you're at your healthiest to have children and expand your family. And by the way, if you are thinking about having children, God bless you. I think that's a wonderful thing. As you guys know, I'm a little bit worried about this population problem that we're having. We have more people on the planet than ever. So when I say there's a population issue, I'm not talking sheer numbers of people. What we have is a unique situation where there's a lot of elderly people, and the young people to replace them in the job market is dwindling. So ideally, you would like to have 2 to 5 workers to kind of help take care of a worker that has left the market and help pay for their retirement. But I think it's one of those situations where in America, I think instead of having 3 to 5 workers for every person that's retiring, I think we have closer to like 1 or 2 workers. Like, it's pretty devastating. And so it leads you to different thoughts like, well, maybe when it comes to immigration, maybe it's not just about one side keeping the door open, right, for immigrants to come in, and the other side trying to close it. Because the reality is, no matter who's president, whether it's a Republican regime or a Democrat regime, right, more than likely you're still going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, you know, come across the border, right? So there's opportunities for people to come illegally regardless of who the president is, right? At the same time, I think we should definitely close the border, right? So I'm not saying one side is right or wrong, but if it were me, I'm thinking close that border. Make it where when people come in, they have to do it the right way, right? Because there's only one way to do things in life, the right way. Whenever people are sneaking over to another country, you have to ask yourself, well, what would happen if I did that to another country, right? If I decided to go into Spain unannounced and just start living there, I would assume that I would have some issues. And if they found me, there's probably a chance that they would deport me, right? Well, that's the same thing that happens here. So when people don't want to come up legally, you know, I always have to assume that, you know, well, why? Why don't you want to do it the right way? And in the past, you've always heard stories of, well, it takes X amount of years to do the process right. And a lot of people are kind of seeking asylum, and, you know, they don't really have 7 or 8 years or however long the process takes to do it the right way. You know, so in that regards, we need some sort of reform. Maybe there's a way that they can go through the process sooner. The one thing that I kind of look at is if the average price of a coyote to sneak a person in the country is about $5,000 to $8,000, because that's what I always hear whenever they talk about paying coyotes to sneak them into our country. I always think it sounds like there should be a way where America's government should be able to say, hey, we have people that are willing to pay $5,000 or $8,000 to come into this country. Those aren't people that we should let the coyotes take. We should let people in Mexico and all around the world know that, hey, if you're willing to pay $5,000 to $8,000, you probably mean business. Let's take that $5,000 to $8,000. Let's lower our tax problems in this country, right? And then if you want money to send off to a never-ending war, you could take it right from the immigrants that are more than willing to pay $5,000 to $8,000. I'll tell you what's a scam about the coyote system that they have going now. If you pay $5,000 to $8,000 and something happens where you actually get caught, I don't think the coyotes and them refund you your money. But if we had a situation where people could pay $5,000 to $8,000 to come in legally, oh my God, do the math. You have 1 million people coming into the country every year, or however many millions of people, times $5,000 to $8,000 a piece. Oh my God, all of a sudden we would be looking at immigration in a completely different light. We would be saying, wow, immigration is legally paying for our seniors' retirement plan. Immigration is legally paying for all this money we ship off overseas for these never-ending wars. I mean, am I the only one that thinks there's something to that? You know, I don't know if you guys knew this, but families will save up their lifetime savings to pay to people so that they can come over here to this side of the border and hopefully start a new productive life. And by the way, I live in Arizona where we see a lot of families where they are Spanish speaking. They are the hardest working people in the world. Let's take advantage of it in the right legal way. And by the way, it wouldn't be taking advantage of poor souled people, right? You don't want people to be taken advantage of. I think being taken advantage of is doing something the illegal way where you might lose your life savings and not get into another country. I think the best way to do it would be to have it where the country is expecting you, the country looks forward to you moving in, and by you paying $5,000 to $8,000, we might even be able to set it up where the government has a situation where they could connect people that are renting out their homes to these families that are paying to be here. And I just have a feeling we could turn that into a win-win situation. Now, if you're involved in the city, state, or national government levels and you know that there's a problem to what I'm saying, share the problem. Because that's how dialogue starts. Jesse, your plan sounds good on paper, sounds good from initial appearances, but when you delve in because of A, B, and C, this is why your plan would be catastrophic or would not work, right? But my goodness, when I heard, and by the way, I heard about people paying $5,000 to $8,000 like five or 6 years ago, right? Right? I heard about it from quite a long time ago. I have a feeling due to inflation and the cost of everything, that's probably closer to $8,000 to $10,000 now, right? And if you have a situation where people are paying that much money to come into a country, but they're paying it to people that are doing it illegal, let's do it legally. I remember a couple years back, did you guys hear about this? They found a truck on the side of the road, and when police officers opened up the back gate, it was one of these diesel trucks, right, with this big diesel, what is the cab called? Or the big giant, the big box that the diesel carries, right? The load, so to speak. They opened up the back and they ended up finding out that there was like, I think, a couple hundred people sandwiched in the back of this diesel truck. And I think a great majority of them had perished. And the ones that hadn't died yet were hanging onto a limb because they're literally inhaling the smells from the dead people back there. Do you guys remember that? Now, I don't know about you, but I think that is devastating. To have 100 people that were trying to come into this country to change their life, they have to do it the illegal way because that's the only way to get things done, right? And they end up perishing. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, but I've heard rumors that every single year out in our Arizona deserts, so I'm sure this happens in Texas and California and New Mexico too, I've heard that every year we have hundreds, if not thousands of people, where they find their bodies out in the desert because they didn't have adequate water. They got tired. They didn't realize that walking from one country to another through a desert is not optimal, right? Now, don't get me wrong, people find a way to successfully do the trek all the time. But you want to know what that's a testament to? That's a testament to how tough these people are that are coming into our country. And I mean tough in a positive way. These are people that, if they can make that trek, they're probably going to find a way to be successful in this country, you know? So again, my thinking is, instead of making this some lifelong war, this lifelong, us versus you and the border policy, man, why don't we start taking advantage of the fact that there are people around the country that are willing to pay 5 figures to live here? God, I just can't get over the math. You have millions of people every year that want to come in this country. Why don't we collect 5 to 8 grand a head and get them in here? And you want to know something that's kind of crazy? In order to move here, tell me what your guys' thoughts are on this, because you might feel the exact opposite way of me. But in order to move here legally, you're supposed to take a standardized citizenship test where you kind of learn about, the Constitution, and you learn about who the first president was, and you learn all this stuff about the history of our country. Guys, I don't know if that's really necessary, especially when you consider that whenever there's videos of Leno or different people asking random members of the public who the president is and who the mayor of their city is, God, have you guys ever heard those videos? 90% of the time, people have no idea who their governor is. They have no idea who their state congressmen or their state senators are, right? And when you don't know those things, and then you're expecting somebody from another country to come in here and study up on the Constitution, this, that, and the other, it just seems kind of disingenuous, right? Ideally, you would love for people to come in this country and automatically know who Benjamin Franklin is, and who George Washington is, and who Abraham Lincoln is, right? But at the same time, if I were to move to another country, I don't think I should have to know who the first leader of France was, or, what's the name of Emmanuel Macron's wife? Who cares? If you have the money and you have the ability to make a living in another country, and you're a positive person in that other country, they should probably allow you to go there, And I have a feeling Americans probably become expats in other countries all the time. All these men that go down to the Philippines, some of them for good reasons, some of them for not so good reasons. But when men go down to the Philippines and decide to live there forever, God, do they have to tell the country who the first handful of leaders were of that country? I don't know, I doubt it. I've never heard an expat on video say, hey, I'm in the Philippines, I finally passed my Filipino government test. I've never heard that. I just don't think that's a good thing to do for people coming into a country. If you want to make it where they have to take classes to get around in America, teach them some English classes. I would much rather have foreigners learn how to speak perfect English than, have them find out who the first handful of presidents were, especially considering the average American can probably only name about a dozen presidents altogether, right? We've had 46. We're going to be naming our 47th here pretty soon. I mean, I don't know about you. I only know about 10 or 12 presidents altogether. Do you guys know much more than that? I have a feeling there's probably a couple history teachers and professors at the college level that probably can't name all the presidents. Don't get me wrong, there's probably a couple in Harvard and Yale and Brown and Cornell that can, But I'd be willing to bet there's a couple professors that can't name them all. Now, if you were to go over all of them, they could probably tell you information about their administration. So it's not that they don't know all of them. But I don't think any of them could name more than, X amount at a time. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? My thinking is we've been looking at immigration and stuff in this negative way for so long. Yet my whole lifetime, all the people that I've ever seen that came from Mexico, not necessarily South America, but from Mexico, guys, they are the nicest people. They have such a pro-family vibe. Many of them are Christian, right? Many of them believe in working harder to get ahead in life. I don't know about you, but those are actually ideals that are pretty positive. The one thing that irks people is, okay, if you're a good person, you should want to do things the legal way. But if we're a good country that wants to do things right by its citizenship or by its citizenry, then what we ought to do is take those people, gladly take their money, and start using that money for good in this country. Right now, what we do is we take American taxpayer money and we think about building a wall and we think about hiring more border patrol. But would you have to build a wall or hire border patrol if getting into the country involved paying a fee, taking a class not on who the presidents were, but taking a class on speaking English and applying for jobs, getting a social security number so you can be taxed properly? God, that sounds like a win-win. Jesse, if you were king, the world would be better. I know. I say what we ought to do is just make me king. I would take care of all the bad people. I would make it where they never bothered a single soul again. I would take care of all the immigrants, and I would make it where our country would be the richest in the world. Yes. Is it that easy, Jesse? Of course not. I'm a fool even for talking like this. The problems of the world are so intricate and complicated. I'm probably forgetting about dozens upon dozens of points that, probably make what I'm talking about impossible and not a good idea. So again, when I'm talking about this, keep in mind, I'm not some border policy expert. I'm just conversing with my venters. I want people to be happy in this world, and I feel like we have some things that are easy fixes. Is it the one I'm describing? Maybe, probably not. But there are some easy fixes in the world. One of the things we ought to do is we ought to start seeing commercials for people that are saying the joys and the benefits of getting married and raising a family. Because then what we could do is we could take population crises like we're in all around the world, and we could fix those. Instead, what we do is we bend over backwards, trying to tell people about choices they have. And you don't need to ruin your future because you can make a choice, right? When it comes to reproductive rights. Guys, you have that choice. There's no doubt about it. But there's nothing positive that comes out of that choice, People that make that choice that, hey, I'm going to go on and we're not going to have this child, it's a choice that some people make, but I seriously doubt it's a choice that anybody is overjoyed and happy with. And there are a great number of people that make that choice and end up being depressed about that choice for the rest of their lives. And nobody ever gives play to those voices out there. So I'm telling you, take advantage of your walk. When you become pregnant, there are options out there. You deserve to at least take a look at those options. Because in this world, we don't really realize how important babies are. I never thought about this 5, 10, 15 years ago. But when you have a situation where elderly people in this country outnumber young people 2 or 3 to 1, and every single day in this country, tens of thousands of people are leaving the job market to retire. What do we do to counter that? We say, okay, well, instead of retiring early at 62 and getting full retirement at 65, we're going to change that so you can get early retirement at 64 and traditional retirement at age 70, right? And I'm just throwing out numbers there, but I'm sure you guys have heard similar stuff. We're talking about making people work longer. Simultaneously, I don't know if you guys have heard, but over the last handful of years, the life expectancy rates have gone down. What does that look like to you, Jesse? Well, Bob, that looks like to me a situation where they want you to work until the day you die. If you can't retire till age 70 and life expectancy drops down to age 74 rather than age 78 or whatever it is, then what's that tell you? That tells you that they no longer expect you to retire in your 60s and live to be your mid or late 70s. They now want you to retire in your early 70s and to go ahead and die by the time you're your mid-70s.
Little battery change there as I sit in somebody's porch or driveway. Why? Well, because there's shade up there, you know, so I'm not doing it to be shady or devious. But I would hope that the neighbors would look at me thinking, what the heck is he doing there? But when they see me changing my battery out and I'm just using the shade, our neighbors here tend to be kind of down to earth, right? And they see me all the time, so they know I'm just the guy with the camera. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I want our seniors to live like royalty, because I think our grandparents deserve to live like the kings and queens they are, right? If you agree with me, let me know down in the comments. If you think what I'm saying is hogwash and ridiculous, let me know down in the comments, because the reality is it's just an idea that I woke up with and started talking with today, right? I might not be thinking of all the pros and cons, whereas you might know better, and I'm willing to accept the fact that you might know better. And I think if people realize that sometimes people do know better than them, it opens up their mind to the idea that they could be wrong, right? Wouldn't it be great if everybody knew that there was a chance they could be wrong and they were willing to listen to reasoning? If we could all be a little bit more reasonable, the world would be such a better place. And you walking, in my opinion, makes the world a better place too. So thank you for walking with me. Have a beautiful day.